Okay, so we're going live on Facebook here, and this training is exclusive to the Happiness Coach group. So welcome everyone. If you are watching this live, type in #live so that I know that you're here. If you're watching the replay, make sure you type in #replay so that I know kind of what time of day that you guys are watching this, and I can start tailoring my trainings to when you guys are around, and then that way we can have more interaction. So I'm going to be starting to do some more exclusive content that is only going to be available in the Happiness Coach group. And so if you know anybody that might benefit from this, feel free to invite them to the group. Make sure they know to answer all of the questions so that everybody's on the same page. So let's dive into today's training. We're going to talk about how to deal with lying. And this happens so often in our personal lives and our professional lives. And what actually triggered it is I was reading some various posts on X today, and I was like, how do we deal with, there's so much lying, so much inauthentic stuff that gets posted in the media with politicians, everything else like that. I'm like, how do we actually deal with this? And I know it brought up me thinking of how I've learned about lying, what is behind it, how it happens, what you can do to actually change it. And so we're going to dive into that, and we're going to take a little bit more of a trauma-informed change management approach. So I will be using some personal examples as well as some professional examples. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the different types of lying, right? And I've broken it down to 6 types of lying. Some is kind of a little bit, the first 3 aren't so bad. The last 3 are a little bit worse. Okay, so we're going to talk about the first type of lying. I call it Lou. This is lies of omission. So this is where we don't provide certain pieces of detail, and we don't give all of the information. We avoid saying something. And so this kind of comes from, it's not always from a bad place, right? It comes from the sayings like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Well, these can be problems, right? So I call that one Lou, lies of omission, where we are not actually providing all of the information and we don't say what is on our mind. We're going to dive into a little bit more of why that's a bit of a problem and how we can fix those kind of things. Okay, so the second one, again, it's not so bad because these ones aren't as intentional. They're usually just trying to play nice, right? Denial is don't even know I am lying. That's what that stands for, is we're unaware that we're actually lying, and that usually comes because we've been operating in a way for so long that we just think that this is normal, right? And so when I think of those kind of things, it might be that you'll say something doesn't bother you, that, somebody talks down to you or something, you're like, it's no big deal, right? But deep down, it does actually affect us, but we keep telling ourselves it's no big deal, it's no big deal. And to some extent, that's okay. And it does help us through, but eventually we have to start looking at that stuff, because if not, we end up becoming a doormat, right? Or we end up, if we say, oh, it's no big deal, it's no big deal, then next thing you know, we're blowing up in anger because it is a big deal, and we let all of those little things pile up rather than addressing them when they're smaller, right? So that is denial. This one is 3. 50 Shades to People Pleasing is what I call this one. this is the little white lies. You know, your wife asked you if these jeans make her look fat, and you're like, no, no, they don't. And they do, right? Or, you know, you go to your mother-in-law's and she made something for dinner and it's like, do you like it? It's like, and you smile and nod and go, yeah, yeah, it's great, thank you. So these are little white lies, and there's all kinds of grades. Like, you know, that's why I put 50 Shades of Grey, because there's smaller ones. It's like where we tell kids that there is a Santa Claus, and, you know, there's not really a Santa Claus, in case you didn't know. But there are those little lies that start adding up, right? And they're not meant to be harmful. They're meant to allow somebody to save face, right? But we have to be cognizant of them, and we have to be aware of how often are we doing that stuff and why are we doing it. Because if we do this out of habit, out of default, this becomes an ongoing problem. And it reminds me of when I had a family member live with us for a little bit, and I hadn't realized how much I had become somebody who is very authentic, very open, very honest. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I make sure that I don't tell lies for the sake of telling lies. And this person, they had a habit of telling lies over the silliest things, and it drove me mental. And why is because when I first started out in my healing journey, I was very much like that. I told lies when it was just as easy to tell the truth. And it was something that just kind of, it was normal in the family, right? You know, you would lie about little things, big things, all of that kind of stuff. And that was kind of normal. Like, I would lie about the stuff that I did on the weekends at work because I wanted to impress other people, right? And so I used to do that kind of stuff until I learned that, oh, I don't actually have to be that way. I didn't know another way, because that was what the environments I grew up in, that was normal, right? That you try to save face, that you try to look good, and you try to present yourself in a certain way. And that was normal. And so when I started going through healing and recovery, and I learned that I could just as easily tell the truth, and the world didn't shatter, it didn't end, I didn't fall apart, I didn't die. And I was like, oh wow, this is kind of cool. I really like this. And ever since I learned that I could do that without huge consequences, I am somebody that really likes to embrace the truth. And that also can make me a little bit difficult to be around, because it's like, I will be open, I will be honest. Now, I still oftentimes fall into the people-pleasing one, and I fall into the lies of omission and denial. So those first three, I still catch myself doing those things, but I'm much more aware of it now, and we'll go over how you address those things and how you self-correct on those, okay? If you find you yourself are doing these, and anybody who tells you that they don't lie, that alone is a lie. Everybody's lied at some point. So being aware of it and understanding why we're doing it, and then when we understand why, we can take a look at it and see, is there a better way to be handling this? Because there are consequences for those lies, and especially when they start to stack up. Okay? So the fourth one is intentional lies. Okay? So intentional lying happens when obviously you know that what you're saying is a lie, and you're either doing it to try and get out of trouble, or you are doing it to, like I had mentioned, for, trying to present yourself in a way that maybe isn't quite true. And so you maybe do those kind of things, right? So it's an intentional lie. You know that you're maybe on the lower end of the scale. You might call it embellishing or taking liberty for effect, or stuff like that. And so you can try and justify it, but at the end of the day, it's still an intentional lie. You know that you're lying, you're doing it. It's not like denial, where this is kind of normal, but you're avoiding. It's like you maybe tell yourself, oh, you know what, I can quit drinking anytime. I can, go on a diet anytime, right? So we kind of lie to ourselves about certain things that we're not prepared to face. That's different than intentional lying, okay? And so, where did my other note go? Okay, so intentional lying is more to get out of trouble. When you think of a little kid where they're caught, they're busted, and you ask them, did you hit your sister? And they're like, no, I didn't do it. It wasn't me, the dog did it, right? That kind of stuff. So it's intentional lying. The fifth one is what I call testing. I see this happen more in corporate and female social circles. Guys, not so much. They tend to be a little bit more direct, intentional with their lying, but the testing one is one where you give a false piece of information to somebody, you lie about something, and the purpose of that is to see who comes back, who is trying to find where the leak is, trying to find who you can trust, that kind of testing, lying. And that is, although you feel like you're protecting yourself, I personally do not use this at all. Never have I used this method. But I've had it used on me. And it's not a good thing, because even though I proved trustworthy and it wasn't something that I leaked out or anything else like that, because I'm aware that they're doing it, it's now puts their integrity, their morals, it just makes you come across weak, actually, right? That because you're so busy trying to find out, and you're creating circumstances to cause somebody to be in a position to betray you, that you end up having a self-fulfilling prophecy, is basically what I see that as. And that's not a good thing. And that actually, if the other person or people know that that's happening, you end up causing a breach in trust, which is the very thing that you were trying to avoid by testing, by giving false information to see if somebody would actually betray you. And what ends up happening is the person that you did that to ends up feeling betrayed. So the energy you are giving out is the energy that you get back. So this is why I never use this one. And it's something that if you are using, I highly recommend you stop doing that right away. Okay? 6, gaslighting. Now, this is more sinister. This is, how do you say? This is a tool of narcissist, the devil, that kind of stuff, right? Not that I like those kind of labels, but what it does is it sows seeds of doubt. It is telling a lie that you deliberately know with the intent to harm the other person. That you are trying to make them feel crazy. And I had experienced a lot of this growing up, that it causes so much doubt and instability. And I am very, very sensitive to this kind of lying and the gaslighting behavior, where they will get you to doubt yourself. And so I avoid this kind of lying. Absolutely don't do that. Now, I might have done something out of, well, that's not how I remember it, and somebody might think that I'm trying to gaslight them. I've never ever intentionally gaslit somebody. I may have forgotten something or not remembered something exactly correct, but that's very different than doing it with the intent to throw the other person off balance. And I see this a lot in dysfunctional relationships, and I've watched other people do that, and I try to put a stop to that as soon as I see it, and I call that out. I don't like being part of that because it's not good for either side, the person who's doing the gaslighting or the person who's being gaslit. And so I try to mitigate that as soon as possible if I see that. Okay? All right, so we're going to go into why is this a problem? Well, number one, we can't fix or what we don't acknowledge or what we're not aware of, right? So if we're always lying about something or somebody is lying to us about something, then we can't actually fix the problem. If somebody keeps telling us, and even if it's done innocently, if somebody keeps telling us it's okay, it doesn't matter, it's all right, then what you're doing is you're not giving the other person the dignity, the honor. You don't respect them enough to believe that they would actually change their behaviors. Now, this is different if you also get to the point where you've been doing that and then finally you're just like, you know what, it doesn't matter, because on your end, it does feel like it's never going to change. So I'm not saying that's an excuse. It's something that still needs to acknowledge. You need to acknowledge that yourself, and part of the reason that you're probably not acknowledging it is denial, because if you actually face the truth, you might actually have to implement some changes that would be uncomfortable. And like I've got this little saying up here, the truth will set you free, but first it's going to make you feel like shit. So, yeah. You can't fix what you don't acknowledge and what you're not aware of. It wastes time, energy, and resources. So when I think of being in business, right, there's been many times, and I've had this happen, and I've seen this happen, I've been on projects where this has happened, where somebody will say it's because of this reason that this thing has happened. And so you go off. Actually, I've got a great story. This is a personal one that I did. And I was a teenager, and I was smoking, and I went into the grocery store. I asked my mom for some money. I told her I wanted to buy some pop and some chips for my lunch as she was driving me to work. And so she gave me some money, and instead of buying pop and chips, I went in and I bought a pack of cigarettes. Well, they gave me the wrong change. And so when I gave the change to my mom, she looked at it and she's like, why is the change wrong? Well, I bought cigarettes, I didn't buy pop and chips. And I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, well, what did you buy? And I'm like, chips, pop. And so she got mad, jumped out of the car, went in and started yelling at the cashier. And I was just like, oh God. So I did that kind of thing. And yeah, I got busted. I bought cigarettes. He told her what I actually bought, and that was before they did the age check stuff. And so she dropped me off at work, and I was really afraid, and I knew I was going to get in shit. So what I did is I invited a friend that needed a ride home to come in the car on the ride home. So yeah. That's a funny story, but that wasted a lot of time, energy, and resources. So there's a personal example for you guys. and to also show that I don't have a halo, or if I do, it's a little bit crooked, right? But we all do this. Okay, the last one is lying breaks down trust, it breaks down integrity, it causes feelings of betrayal, it creates retaliation cycles. This is really important because when, especially, I've seen this dynamic in work environments so often, where somebody will get told a lie about something, and they know it's a lie, but nobody confronts it. So what ends up happening is this whole tit for tat kind of behavior and mentality. It's like, well, you did this to me, so now I'm going to do this to you, right? And that's never a good cycle to be part of. And if you see that cycle happening, make sure you break that as soon as possible. So let's talk about the barriers and roadblocks to change and how to overcome them. Okay? So obviously, one of the biggest barriers to change, and how do we change this behavior if you do notice lying that's happening? And the first thing that we have to do is we have to make it easier for people to tell the truth. You have to reward that behavior. So what this requires is two things. Is we have to manage our own reactions at how well we are at receiving the information, right? So this can even happen with when somebody's telling you good things. So for example, I had a hard time receiving compliments when I first started doing my healing work and therapy and stuff like that. And so when people would try to compliment me and say, oh, I really like your dress, or you did a really good job on that, I would have, because I was so uncomfortable with receiving the compliment, I would have a whole list of reasons of why that wasn't true. And I felt like they were lying when they gave me that compliment. I didn't feel like it was a sincere thing. And so that was because of a belief within myself that I didn't believe I deserved that. And so when I did the healing work and I started to recognize it, and people would call me out on that or acknowledge, it's like, you know, why are you being so hard on yourself? And it's like, oh, I'm not really being hard on myself. This is just, you know, I did this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. And it's like really freaking annoying being that way. And I was that way. So one of the ways that I started to work towards breaking that behavior is when somebody would give me a compliment, I would just say, thank you. And I would just accept it, and I had to sit with the emotions with it rather than giving a whole list of reasons of, oh, this whole thing that I'm wearing, oh, it's no big deal. I actually got it on sale, and you know, it was end of season, it wasn't really great. You know, whatever it is that we minimize these things, the compliments. So that, why I give that example is because continuing that behavior, it makes it hard for somebody to tell me the truth of the good things that they like, not just the bad things, right? So people would withhold that information because it was so difficult for them to compliment me. Same thing with the negative stuff. When you get critical feedback or somebody says something that is bad or negative and you become defensive. I was like that. You use the same tool and you say, thank you. Thank you, that is information I really needed to know. I appreciate you telling me that. And so this is why I say gratitude is the first way to start to change this. And you say thank you for the negative compliments now, or the negative things. And even if you think that it's like, that's not true, what they're saying is bullshit, and I have all of these reasons of why that's not true, Do not get into a battle over it. Say thank you. Acknowledge that they've provided you that feedback. That's helpful information that I needed to know. I'm going to take this away and think on this. So don't react. Give yourself some space and time to process it. Understand where your emotions are coming from and do a root cause and corrective analysis on where is the fear coming within you. Maybe the stuff they are saying is a complete lie. It has no basis in reality, none whatsoever. Yet you get angry, you get defensive, and it ends up proving their point for something. Well, being able to really understand, it's like, okay, even if that is a complete lie, why am I having this emotional reaction? Why is it bringing up fear in me? Because if that's a complete lie, then my own behavior will be enough to prove that that's not a lie. So if people are saying negative things about you, live in a way that nobody would actually believe that that was true. So this is why always approach somebody who's lying, and whether it's positive or negative, and approach it with gratitude. So just saying thank you rather than getting into arguing about it, right? And then make sure that you're responding appropriately. This starts to create an environment where people start feeling comfortable to tell the truth, whether it's a positive compliment or it's a negative feedback. Either way, there's feedback, especially if we're able to accept the compliment or create change for the negative behavior. Okay? So make it easier for people to tell you the truth. The second thing, and I do this quite a bit, and I would start to do this especially in the beginning of my healing journey and when I started to become aware of this, is I would calmly call out and acknowledge that what somebody was telling me was not true. And this was a way for me to let them know that I knew that they were actually lying to me. And I would give them the opportunity and allow them to save face and self-correct. Okay? And because I've done so much work and I knew where I was coming from and why I was lying, so I knew that their lies were based out of feeling fear. And if I create that safe environment that allows them to self-correct, then now they don't have to feel fear or punishment because of the lie. And it also has an energy where it brings out, I believe that you will self-correct. I believe that you will do the right thing. Now, some people will not do that. Maybe they don't see it, but if I believe if I continue to set that example, that eventually they will come around to my way of thinking, my way of operating, because I find this way so much more effective, so much more efficient, and much more collaborative. It makes me happier. You don't have to remember what you told this person or that person. It frees up so much energy. It's a better way of being. So I will acknowledge in a couple of different ways. So again, it's done calmly. You're not like, oh, you're a fucking liar. You're not doing that. No, that's the wrong way to approach it. And if you have gotten to that point, then you've been letting lies that you know, and you've been letting it go on too long. So if you've gotten to the point where you're flipping out and you're swearing and you're yelling at them that they're a liar, they're a manipulative bastard, blah, 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 whatever it is, then you've been letting shit go on too long. And that is the part that you need to own and you need to correct and deal with so that you don't get to that point. So once you start behaving that way and you don't allow yourself to react in that manner, you're going to start to self-correct and start calling things out in a way that is calm, cool, collected, and acknowledging that you know that what they told you was not exactly true. Okay? And so some of the ways that I'll do this is I'll say, I could be wrong, but this is what I remember. Okay? So basically, you're clarifying the information that you're aware of, and you're restating it. And you may ask another question, is there something that changed, right? Or is there something that I'm not aware of, right? And allow them to correct that understanding. Because there's been times where I'm like, well, I thought it was this. And by doing this in a calm manner, there have been times I've been wrong, right? Rather than going away and assuming, oh, this person's lied to me, I actually, because I remained calm, because I approached that and I had the intent that if they were deliberately trying to lie or cover something up, then that gives them the opportunity to come clean. It gives them the opportunity to self-correct the story. And, but if I was the one that was wrong, it gives them a chance to add the additional information, the missing piece, or I might have been thinking it was about this other thing, and they're like, no, it's this. Oh, shit. Okay. Now we have better communication, right? And then you see that there's no need for lying. There's no need for that kind of covering things up because there's no punishment, there's no retaliation, there's just open communication and belief that each of us is doing the right thing. And I know there's probably some of you out there going, Tina, you're way too fucking naive, but somebody's got to break the cycle because this is far too normal, right? This is why I'm like, there seems to be no consequences, and we see this on the internet all the time. People can say all kinds of shit that is absolutely not true, and there's zero consequence for it. They can destroy people's lives, they can destroy their integrity, cause doubt, all of those kind of things. Very malicious stuff that you can see happening. There's also good stuff too, but we have to start understanding and not allowing that kind of behavior to thrive. And by starting to address it in a calm way rather than a combative way, then we can start calling it out that that's an unwanted behavior, that's not a good behavior, that's not acceptable, and we're acknowledging and allowing people to self-correct, okay? And that also means allowing them their feelings. That might be something that's very threatening, depending on the environment they grew up in, the kind of behaviors. It's like, oh no, I was busted. Oh, that could be really scary for them. So allow them to save face, allow them space for their feelings, and allow them to self-correct, okay? So I could be wrong. This is how I remember it. And then sometimes I'll just playfully, like when I know it is flat out complete lie, I'll playfully say, that is not true and you absolutely know it. And then usually, because I'm being playful about it, they're being playful, and then they'll admit their lie, right? And I used to have a coworker that this would happen a lot. He would tell me all kinds of stuff because he just wanted to get a rise out of me. My younger brother used to do that too. And I guess it's maybe because I'm just too calm or something. They just wanted to see if they can rattle my cage, right? And I just wouldn't allow for those kind of things. So I would keep it light, I would keep it playful, but also let them know that they can't pull any shit with me. So call their bluff, and but do this in a way that is fun and playful, keeps the relationship intact, okay? And the third one is increasing our own personal awareness. So first one is gratitude. Second one is acknowledging that the lie is happening and that you're allowing them to self-correct. And the third one is ownership. Increasing our own personal awareness and doing our own inner work and doing the root cause corrective action will allow us to, sorry, I'm just trying to read my notes. Yes. So when I started to catch myself especially with the people-pleasing one, that I would tell people what I thought they wanted to hear, even though that wasn't true. So how I would, when I caught myself doing that as a repetitive behavior, I would force myself to go back and say, you know what, I know I said I wanted to come over and I would be there, but I actually am feeling really tired and I just want to stay home today. And I started to force myself to go and do little things like that in small ways, because these weren't like big lies, or I wasn't trying to spin any webs or anything like that. These were just little things where I would catch myself saying something I didn't really mean. And I started to practice the approach of let my yeses mean yes and let my no's mean no. And I still fall back into this old behavior from time to time, but I catch myself with it. And when I do, I go back and I say, you know what, I said this, but I really mean this, right? So doing that has allowed me to stay in integrity with myself, and it also adds a preventative layer, because if I know that every time I catch myself in a lie that I have to go back and admit it and self-correct, it will cause me to prevent any future lying as long as I'm aware of those kind of things. And so making sure that I self-correct with that and call myself out with it rather than allowing it to go on. And then when you start to demonstrate that kind of behavior, then other people will start to pick up on that and they'll catch themselves doing those things as well. And so after going through some of the X stuff, and I'm like, because I thought, you know, yes, we could try, like, you know, it's so easy to kind of go into the punishing mode. It's like you catch somebody lying and it's like you just want to punish them for betraying you and saying this and saying that and causing all this doubt and fear. And that can be a natural reaction, especially if it's been going on for a long period of time. Then that can be really upsetting. Right? So this is why it's important to address those issues when they're smaller, rather than letting them snowball and getting out of control. So punishing is not the way to go. Creating an environment that is not conducive to lying, that it's more rewarding for people to tell the truth than it is for them to lie. And so rewarding people for when they are being open and honest and vulnerable, which is why it's so important when they tell you something that you don't like, that you say thank you, that you appreciate that feedback. And so this will start dismantling the culture of lying. Right? So if you have that culture of lying, whether it's in your family dynamic, in your relationships, your friendships, your work environment, these are tools that you can start to implement to prevent that kind of culture from being able to thrive and being more open and honest and vulnerable. And not going to lie, it's going to be hard at first. People are going to think, and you're probably going to feel like you just grew a third head or a second head, right? And you're just like, oh my God, this is terrible, right? And people aren't going to like it. But at the same time, it is going to be so much rewarding, so much more rewarding being in relationships where you can trust that what the other person is saying is true and what you are saying is true. And it's really freeing when you actually do that, and it lends to a lot of happiness, a lot of personal satisfaction and happiness. So guys, I hope you found that helpful. If you did, leave your comments and let me know what you took away from this training, what you liked about it, what you didn't like. Let's be honest about it, okay? And if you found it helpful, because I'm not going to post this one to YouTube, I'm only going to have it in the group. Make sure that you invite other people to the group, and yeah, hopefully we can start building this. I see we're up to 18 members so far, so that's awesome, and I'm really excited that all of you are here. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up and have a great night. Bye.